Well, hello and welcome to The Resource, the podcast propelling employer brands to recruit smarter and retain better. I'm your host, Priscilla Peters.
And I'm your other host, Scott Dismuke. And Priscilla, happy summer. I guess
Happy
technically
summer.
we're recording this a little after Memorial Day. And so I guess we're officially there. Kids are all out of school. And we went over to Arkansas a couple weeks ago and brought my son home. So he's got two more semesters left. One semester he will be starting. So in August, he is leaving for Rome.
Okay.
He's going to spend a semester in Rome before he goes back and does his last semester. So your daughter out of school?
Yes, we're out of school. We're learning to drive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we could do a whole podcast on that.
You don't even know. We could do a whole podcast. If we had a camera in the car, it would be something. I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's been fun. We have lots of children. I have a big blended family, and this is the last child we're teaching to drive, and by far the most difficult.
How's the imaginary brake on the passenger side working for you?
Listen, I will just tell you this. Here's my theory. She's been, she's the youngest, so she has not experienced life without a mobile device. So most of her time in the car, where she would have learned like where to go and how to navigate and all the things, she's been looking right here, at a phone. And now we have to say, you cannot be on your phone in the car, even when she's not driving, because that's the only thing I can cough it up to compared to the other kids. Yes, they had phones, but like they were the one closest to her is 8 years older than her. So, anyway, yeah, it's been fun. We're getting better though.
Well, that's good.
Better.
That's good. So, that's good. Did you have a good Memorial Day? Did you do anything fun?
We did. We just went to the lake. We go to the lake with our family every year, but I will tell you, the drought is so bad down here in the South that there was not enough water to even get the boat in the lake, in the slip we didn't even get on a boat Memorial Day weekend, which is, I don't ever remember that happening in my lifetime, to be honest. So yeah, so there's that.
We were in a drought until around Memorial Day, and it's rained here for like 4 or 5 straight days. So we could have probably used a boat during the holiday. So we're caught up on rain now, but now it's, the last few days it's been super humid. So summer's definitely here. So did you grill out food wise?
Cubby did a shrimp boil.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we did a shrimp boil, and it was great. It was so good. That's kind of how we launch into summer. We always do a shrimp boil on Memorial Day weekend, and it was great. It was amazing. Did you grill?
Well, we couldn't unless I'm not grilling in the rain. So we have a little grill pan. So we grilled inside. It was a little, a little depressing, but we did hamburgers, hot dogs, the stuff you typically do. My wife has inherited a dairy allergy later in life.
Oh, so no.
I've jokingly told her she's ruined everything for us. Our house used to be on Friday nights. We would do, family pizza night. So, we can't even do that now. So,
it's we're learning. We're learning. All these random things pop up. Yeah.
We're learning. So no traveling. Did you have to deal with the gas prices?
No, we just go down to Hot Springs, just an hour from here.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't been bad. I will tell you, I did go to, I guess it was right before I went to ATA mid-year conference, which was great. It was the first time I've been to a conference in the past probably 3 or 4 years where there's optimism in the air in trucking. And it was so nice. I was like, oh, this is great. People are optimistic, freight's improving a little bit, lots of stuff going on. I know we're going to dive into the driver survey today, which is going to be really interesting looking at some of this data. It brings back some flashbacks of when we really had capacity tightening and people like really concerned about recruiting and retention. And I feel like that's beginning to happen again. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, we're definitely hearing it too. I definitely think it's more capacity than it is freight. And boy, I tell you, if we can get the extracurricular activities going on in Iran over with and get gas prices down, I think Katie bar the door. I think we're on the verge of. I never thought we would get back to what it was like during COVID, and I'm not necessarily saying that we will, just from a freight volume standpoint, but I think the capacity crunch combined with an uptick in freight, we could certainly be in that same kind of circumstance that we were in back during COVID.
Yeah, and I mean, based on some of the things they did share ATA, it sounds like inventories are pretty low. And so they're going to have to at some point, kind of backfill all of that. And I think that will help from a freight improvement standpoint. I mean, from on the recruiting side of things, it's beginning to feel very hot over here in these parts, if you will. And if this is just on the supply side and not the demand side, when we really do see some significant freight improvements, it's going to get dicey, I'm afraid, from a recruiting standpoint.
The interesting thing that we're running into, I mean, we went for 2 or 3 years where, I mean, frankly, companies would just flat out tell us we don't even care about retention right now, which is a little mind boggling to me, but that's what they would tell us. Now they're caring about retention, but budgets are still a little hairy, so we're having to be a little creative in helping some folks because turnover is going up. And I know we're going to talk about that here in a second, but turnover is definitely going up, and we've got some data here to back that up. But before we do that, normally we do some must know data at this time. Obviously, most of this episode is going to be all around our spring driver survey. So one thing we'll hit first is our final mile first 5. And usually we run through about 5, rapid fire questions. But today, since we got a lot on the docket, we're going to just hit one of those. So you ready for that?
I'm ready.
So this one makes me laugh. Picking on men here a little bit. So men wearing flip-flops in public, completely acceptable, or should it be federally regulated? Federally is a little much of a stretch, but so here's my question on this. I think we have to define what public is, right?
Well,
I mean,
in my mind, that's leaving the house.
well,
Are you saying
if it's
like the
just
pool doesn't count, or like the lake or
like
the beach?
the grocery store. I mean, I'll admit this weekend I had to leave the house, had to go get a couple things at the grocery store. I've got some Hoka flip flops that are most comfortable pairs of shoes that I have. I had them on, went to the store. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
I didn't know this was a thing. Okay, first of all, let me just say I do not like feet. I hate feet. Okay, I'm going to lead with that. However, I feel like everyone is entitled to wear flip flops whenever and wherever they want to. Now, whether or not you will be judged by the way your feet look is a totally different deal, and especially men. But I will say, as a frequent pedicure person, I don't think that's a word, but I see lots of men when I get pedicures. There's a lot more men there than I used to see. Yes, and
Yeah,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
my wife has got me hooked on them. Not gonna lie,
Yeah.
I was very resistant. I was probably 48 years old the first time I ever got a pedicure, and once I got
Look
one,
how
and
it's changed your
I
life.
was I was like, okay, yeah, I don't care. Make fun of me all you want. So yeah, so now I don't get them all the time, but listen, I'm going to the grocery store or something like now. If I've got people showing up at my church on Sunday in flip flops, men, no, I don't think that's
Really?
acceptable. No, yeah, I
That's
don't think that's
hardcore, I feel like. I don't care. Come on to church in your
well.
flip flops. I'm good. I'm fine with it.
Well, I don't listen. If we had employees that showed up the office in flip flops, I would send them home to put on
That does
girl shoes.
not surprise me, Dismuke. You are a little hardcore, I will say, but I love
Well,
it.
I I don't know. Flip flops and hats say the same thing. Like flip flops and hats to me, it's like that's vacation, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it just depends on the quote unquote in public. Now, the larger issue I have here, and this is just my conservative roots. I mean, I've been a Republican all my life. I don't know. People may turn it off now that I said that, but so less government interference is kind of how I take. So I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
we should
So
have
you have to
some.
throw that in.
I
Okay.
don't think we have to have. I
Yeah.
don't think it has to be federally mandated that men can't wear flip flops. I think
But it
that's
is
a little.
mandated at PDA, apparently.
Well, apparently, yeah, yeah,
I love it.
yep.
That's
But
hilarious.
that's the government. That's not the government doing it. That's private industry doing it. That's a
Right, right.
totally different thing. Totally different.
Okay. Well, now that we have solved absolutely nothing important, let's kind of get down to business. So we are going to be going over some of the data that came out of our 2026 spring driver survey. We do two of these a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. We just completed the spring one. And we're going to dive into this. And we're not going through the whole survey because that would take longer than anyone wants to listen to the two of us talk. But we will include a link in the show notes. You can go to the resource and find that. We'll include all the links that you need in the show notes to download the driver survey. But I will say, in every survey, we always ask one of the very first questions that we ask. And honestly, this survey we led with age and experience, just high level. No one will be surprised that 46 and up was the highest age standpoint, and then experience. There were over 5 years were the most drivers, and you can see all the numbers when you go and look at the survey. But we always ask after those two questions: are you currently looking for a truck driving job? Because we want to know. And this was the highest it had ever been. And for the record, it was the highest it had ever been in the past two surveys. So we're just continuing to creep up. So it was 58.1% said yes. Now that's compared to a year ago, spring 2025, it was 46.8. So it's up over 11%. Now, I have shared these kinds of stats before, and I've kind of had carriers go, oh, okay, well, there's more drivers looking. I'm like, okay, that's not necessarily great news. So obviously from a turnover standpoint, that's not necessarily what we want to hear. But I will tell you, some people equate this to, oh, that means I'm going to get more eyeballs on my jobs. And here's what I will tell you: in today's market, that is not the case, because really supply needs for trucking are heightened. There are more jobs. There are more jobs, so there are less eyeballs, even if there's more drivers looking. So I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but this is interesting. And then when you go on, and I want to kind of get your take on all this, when we go on and we ask, okay, if you are looking for a job and you said yes, why are you looking? The top two were improved home time and predictable pay, which I don't think any of us listeners or either one of us are really surprised with that. But that 58.1%, and even when you look at if they're not looking, why are they not looking? There's some there that could, significant amount said, I'm waiting for the economy to improve, or I need more experience, like to the tune of 40, almost 45%. So we've got a little bit of an issue going here. What's your take on that one, Scott?
So from a retention standpoint, I think that more people looking, to kind of what you were saying. I think if you take the recruiting side of this, I've heard from people, and I'm going to let you speak to it on your end, but I've just heard from people that said they're upping their recruiting budgets. I talked to a rather large carrier about 2 weeks ago, said that they've increased their recruiting budget by about 100% in really the last 6 months. So from the turnover side of it, I look at it as we know drivers are looking, and now we know that companies are starting to become much, much more aggressive in their recruiting. So you kind of throw all of that in with why are drivers looking, and we look at what we know are going to be ads. We know companies are starting to raise pay. We know I know of two that I can think of right off the top of my head. I know of two others that are talking about it. Um, so we know what's coming in the ads. We know that sign-on bonuses are back. That's not a soapbox I want to get on right now, but we know that those are coming back. So just all of the extra activity, and we know drivers are looking. We know drivers are going to listen to offers, and they're going to get multiple offers. So I think from a turnover standpoint, this just tells me this is kind of something I've been saying for a while, that when the economy turns, we're going to have significant driver churn on our hands. I think that's what we're starting to see. And depending on what the freight does, it could only get worse, frankly. So I think this is just what you and I have talked about on this podcast for several months. And I know probably people that listen are like, yeah, you keep saying it, you keep saying it. Well, it's here. It's coming. And I think these are just the first signs of it. So none of this really surprised me. I think a couple things that kind of caught my attention on the ones that said that they weren't looking. 16.8% retired. That's a awfully large number based on the number of responses that we got on this. And I think some of that is because of how difficult the last several years have been. Would not surprise me if some of those, if this thing flips around and we start seeing, big rates and, good pay like we did during COVID. It wouldn't surprise me maybe if some of those folks came back. But there's a lot of numbers here that are a little scary when you realize we're at 58% drivers that are looking. We've got another 20% waiting for the economy to improve, and 23% saying they just need more experience. So that's an additional 43% of drivers that are just
Mm-hmm.
waiting for
Yeah.
something, either the economy or more experience, and then they're going to be looking. So it's those are some pretty significant numbers there.
Yeah. Agree. Agree.
So let's go to the second question here. We're actually going to kind of hit a couple of these. So, what matters to you most right now? And then we're also going to talk about what frustrates you most about communication with your company. So let's talk about this first one about what matters most to you right now. Again, probably not going to surprise a whole lot of folks. Number one at 69% was higher pay, and drivers could choose more than one on this, I believe. So more higher pay at 69%, more home time at 55%, better or consistent miles at 32%. Then we had job stability was actually at 43%, reliable equipment at 42%, and then better treatment / respect at 36%. So here's one thing I want to say about home time, because we see home time all the time, and we see better and we see better home time. Everybody would love to have a home daily job. I mean, I think we could all safely assume that. Here's one thing that we're starting to see in our data more and more, and we've seen it a lot over the last probably 12 to 16 months. It's not always better home time is that I want to be home more often. I'm sure just like higher pay, no driver is going to say no to being home more often. What we're really starting to see, the biggest thing with home time, is missed home time. So if a driver's home every weekend and they're supposed to be home at some point on a Friday and they don't get home till Saturday, that's a problem. And we're starting to see that more and more and more, that it's not necessarily just better home time, more frequent home time. It's you better get me home when you tell me that you're going to get me home. That's one of the things that we've seen on that. You have any takeaways on what matters most to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of that you said. I think on the home time side, one of the things that we're seeing is we're seeing an uptick in jobs, not necessarily because they have more freight, but because they're taking these long over the road runs and they're breaking them up into more regional type runs so that they can get the drivers home more. I mean, I think that basically if you want to just high level this, from a home time perspective, the driver has spoken and they are finally being heard.
Mhm.
And a lot of these traditional, very much over the road companies that had guys out 2, 3, even 4 weeks at a time in some cases are realizing, okay, that is a hard sell in today's market. Now, I'm not saying that you can't hire that guy or girl, gal, you can still hire that type of driver. Don't get me wrong. But it is more difficult because less
Mhm.
people will want that type of lifestyle. And so we're really seeing carriers look at their operations and go, you know what? We got to make a change here. We're not going to be able to get the driver talent that we need if we don't do that. So I think that's just one thing that we're really seeing. And we see it because we're posting more jobs for carriers. And that's really why, which ends up being, when you look at it as a numbers game, as the jobs grow, it impacts like number of job seekers per job. And that's a metric that we look at a lot. And so we're really seeing that kind of play out in the market, which has been interesting. But I do think it's tied to home time.
Well, and I think you make a really excellent point there, because if you take that, how companies are doing their operations and they're wanting to get drivers home more frequently. I think if we're going to attract a younger generation into this industry, that's a must. And we've seen that from previous surveys that we've done where we talk work-life balance and things like that. We know that drivers talk about that. Now, I still think at the end of the day, everything still comes down to pay and pay predictability. But you're spot on. And I think if we're going to attract a younger generation into this industry, it's about predictable pay and predictable home time. And predictable home time is getting them home when you say you're going to get them home.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's kind of pivot here to we asked a series of questions that were related to really how drivers are searching for jobs because we're seeing it in a lot of our data. This kind of uptick in AI search kind of creeping in on more traditional, what we think of as like traditional ways that drivers search. So we said, hey, let's just get it straight from the horse's mouth here. So we asked a series of questions. We asked, how are you searching for new truck driving jobs today? The top ones were, obviously the Indeed, Glassdoors of the world, Google, truck driving jobs, Meta, but AI search came in at 24%, which we've asked that, a year ago is much, much lower. This is in line with another survey that Truck Drivers USA asked drivers this in February. I think theirs was like 23%. This says 24, so it's about kind of in line with that. We asked them a couple of months later, but I think the reality here is that AI powered search tools, they're beginning to influence truck driver job search behavior. And I know that it's kind of basically a soapbox I've been on a lot of our episodes lately, but if carriers are not looking at how their current landing pages, websites, all of your digital assets are being found through AI search, this is something you've got to do. Whether you work with someone on that, whether your team does it, you've really got to be looking at that. We also asked them, we just flat out said, hey, are you using AI as part of your job search? 23.7% said they were. We said, okay, if you are, what platforms are you using? Google, Gemini, and ChatGPT were the top two. Gemini probably most likely because it's just kind of seamlessly integrated into the search results from Google. We know that as how we search, But I think at the end of the day, what all this data is really telling us is that drivers appear to be open to AI powered job search. They're curious. We even asked if there was an AI agent that helped you find a job, help you find and apply for jobs. Would you use it? Almost half of them said they would, 47.9%. So listen, drivers are not they're not getting in the AI game. I will just say, I think probably you and I, Scott, over the past 6 months, you and I've talked about AI and how we're using it in our day to day more than we ever have. And I don't think we can discount the fact that drivers are just like us, you know? And so it's just critical that your employer brand is set up to be able to be found, job descriptions. I mean, everything that's online, your content, your online reviews, all the things, all of these AI search tools are grabbing that content and serving it up to drivers when they search for jobs. I don't know what you think about all of that, but
Well, obviously on the recruiting side, that you're the expert there. I'm certainly not. Here's what stands out to me when I look at all this AI data. The old fogey in me was like, well, that's a young thing. That's a young thing. The younger folks. Here's what I would say, and this is what stands out to me most about all of these AI questions. On this survey, over 70% of the drivers that responded to this survey are over the age of 36.
yeah,
So a far larger majority 36 and beyond than 35 and below. So that tells me that this is not a younger generation thing. It's becoming more and more and more popular. Like you said, you're using it, we're using it. Just a little teaser here. We're going to have a pretty big announcement here probably before the end of the summer on some interesting things that we're doing with AI. But aside of that, that to me is the most significant thing when I'm looking at this is that older folks, older drivers, both men and women are using this. So take that into account because if you get younger people coming in, they're more adept to the technology side of things. I mean, my son's been using. When I told him I was using chat for things, he was like, "Really?" So he's like, "Well, I've been using that for like a year." So if the older folks are using it, like you and I, no, offense, obviously, it's going to be used. So to what Priscilla was saying, if you're not using it, you need to figure out how to use it because it's that too is coming more and more
yeah,
prevalent.
yeah. I think so. I think so. It's going to be interesting as we move forward with all of this.
Yeah. Okay. So last question here that we're going to go over, and let me find it in my notes. So, well, actually, what we didn't touch on that last one was what frustrates you most on the last one that I did. What frustrates you most about communication within your company? I don't want to miss on that one because that one's important. And then I'll hit the last one. So, a couple things. The number one reason or number thing that was the most frustrating for drivers was 24% said it was hard to reach someone. Then we went to 19.9% inconsistent information, 15.6% saying not being listened to, 13% said disrespect, rude, and then 10% said last minute load changes. And there's a couple of other ones in here. Here's the one thing I will say, and I read this on LinkedIn the other day. This is not me saying this. I'm just repeating something I read on LinkedIn. And this was actually really, really hit. They were talking about how when drivers call into operations and they don't get a response, drivers are often told, be patient. But when operations calls a driver and the driver doesn't answer, they often get in trouble for not responding at that time. And I think that's pretty significant there. And I can't remember, I would attribute to whoever said that if I could remember. But one of the things that we've been saying for a long time when it comes to turnover is we often ask drivers to do things that they're not willing to do themselves. And we talk about paycheck errors and we talk about all kinds of things. That communication one, and that really hit me hard, is that drivers often get in trouble for not answering the phone. But when operations doesn't answer the phone, the drivers are told to be patient. It always goes back to the driver's responsibility. And so that was very, very interesting to me. So I didn't want to miss that. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think on that one, you know what I would do? Like, if you have a retention committee or you have a group within your organization that's over retention, I would take that list that you just read, like what frustrates you the most, and rank your carrier, like with honesty. How do we rank on all of these? And then you can identify, oh, wow, like we got to get better here, or we've got to, and then share with your operations team, your dispatchers, your payroll team, anyone who communicates with the driver. I just think like auditing some of this stuff, when we get survey data, like that we do that a lot, where we'll go, okay, let's audit ourselves here. How are we doing? So I don't know. I just think that's kind of a good challenge for our listeners to take that list back and do that.
Well, and I will just tell you, going back to what we talked about earlier about drivers looking and companies becoming more aggressive on the recruiting side of things, if you want to see your turnover go up, silence is one of the best ways to do it, because you're just giving that driver more and more opportunity to listen to someone that is talking to them, and that's going to be recruiting from other carriers. So
Yeah. Yeah.
silence is a great way to drive up turnover if that's what you're looking to do. So okay, last question here, but I didn't want to miss on that one. But last question: what is the one issue that would most likely cause you to leave your carrier in the next 3 months? So let's talk about kind of the top three here. Pay inconsistency is number one at 27%. Lack of respect / appreciation is second at 20%. Not enough home time is 13.6%. And then fourth, poor communication with dispatch is 10%. I don't think there's anything that's just really surprises me here. I will tell you, I do think that lack of respect and poor communication kind of go hand in hand. I mean, we see that all the time. I still think, and we've, a lot of our data has shown this. If you go back and you look at our annual report that we did for 2025, the big word that we kept repeating, that we kept hearing, was predictability. Predictable pay, predictable home time. Predictable pay, predictable home time. Anything that you can do to do that, particularly right now, is going to put you significantly ahead of the curve when it comes to reducing your turnover.
Yeah. None of these surprise me. I just think it's important to understand that this list aligns with the earlier list, and it also aligns with the list of why folks want to leave. It's the drivers are telling us what is most important to them. And I just think that, we've got to listen. It's interesting how everything really does align. And there was some things that, like, equipment was honestly a little bit lower than I thought it would be on this list.
Yeah, it was. And here's a little bonus data here. And this isn't from the survey, but this is from our data, 10 plus years of looking at drivers who voluntarily quit. Do you realize that drivers that have an equipment issue and an operations issue within the first 2 weeks of employment had an 84.4% voluntary quit rate?
Whoa. Wowzer.
Equipment combined with operations, 84.4% quit rate in the first 60 days.
Okay.
So equipment reliability is, I agree with you. That was not, I thought that would be higher, but that poor communication, lack of respect, combined with any kind of equipment issue, if you want to red flag a driver, that's the biggest red flag that we've seen in our data over the last 10 years.
Very interesting. And honestly, that's a little teaser for our next episode. I know you guys have some really cool, just high level data that's come out of the historical data that you have. And so I know we're going to do an episode on that. I'm really excited about that. I think that'll be really cool. So all right. So that's the driver survey. Listen, the driver survey, we asked more questions. I think, what was there, 12 questions?
Yeah, I mean, not counting the first two kind of demographic type questions, I think there was 12 to 13 different questions. Yeah.
So there's more to dive in there. So again, we encourage you to go and download that and share it with your teams. And we'll put the links in the show notes for you as well. But hey, thanks for listening, everybody. If you had fun, give us a virtual high five by leaving a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes.
And if you have questions, you can reach out to us on social media, or you can drop us an email, and all of that information will be in the show notes below. Make sure that you go and go to the resource page or the conversion page, the PDA page, download the driver survey, because it'll be very interesting. We'll do another one later in the fall, which crazily enough, will be here before we know it. So we'll be back next time with more data, insights, and a little fun to help you ace your recruiting and retention game. We hope you have a great day, and we will see you next month.